science seriously can help us, I think, to adopt that position and follow it through. And science helps us in that way through that insight of science, which some people think is actually the point of conflict between science and religion, and it is, of course, science's insight. The process of the world is an evolutionary process. It is a process that involves an interplay between chance and necessity. Slippery words, and we have to be sure we know what they mean. Chance doesn't just mean the capricious acts of the goddess Fortuna. Chance, in this context, simply means happenstance. This happens rather than that. The range of possibilities that might happen in the world vastly exceeds what there has been time actually to occur, even in 13.7 billion years of cosmic history. So there's a contingency in the world, and that's what chance means. But equally, of course, there is a degree of regularity in the world as well. The world is not just a swirling, turbulent chaos, and it is the interplay between chance and necessity, between contingency and regularity, between happenstance and reliability, that actually produces the fruitful process of the world. Scientists like to say that novelty emerges in those regimes which are characterized as being at the edge of chaos. As I say, regimes where both order and disorder, chance and necessity, if you like, interlace with each other. If you are too far on the regular side of that divide, things are too rigid for anything really new to happen. You can get rearrangements of what's going on in the world. You can rearrange bits of Lego in the world, so to speak, but you can't create new bits of Lego in that really. It's just too rigid. Equally, of course, if you're too far on the haphazard side of things, then nothing new that comes into existence will persist. It will fade away as soon as it comes into being. And it is that very delicate, creative balance between chance and necessity at the edge of chaos that produces the fruitful process of the world. And that means that there is this interplay, and that means that there will be a world that is fruitful, a world that theologically we can interpret as a world in which creatures are given by the God of love the gift of freedom to be themselves and to make themselves. Now, you know there's a historically ignorant caricature of what happened when Charles Darwin's great book, The Origin of Species, was published in 1859. The caricature picture, which you find still propagated in the media and so on, is that when Darwin's book was published, all the scientific people shouted, yes, 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 and all the religious people, including, of course, particularly the obscurantist clergy, shouted, no, no, no. And that was the final part of the ways between science and religion. That's not at all what happened. There were doubts and difficulties on both sides, in both communities. A lot of scientists find it very difficult to accept Darwin's ideas. In particular, where did these small variations, which are so important to the theory of the natural selection, where did they come from? Darwin, of course, didn't know the answer. Ironically, the answer had, I can't remember the date and the timing, it had either just about then or just before then or just after then, been discovered by an unknown monk in the Austro-Hungarian Empire called Gregor Mendel, who was able to discern the experiments of plant breeding, the elements of genetics. That was then, it wasn't until that was rediscovered at the beginning of the 20th century that Darwinism became, the picture of evolution through natural selection became scientifically widely persuaded and rightly accepted in the scientific world. So there were doubts on the scientific side. So Sir Richard Owen, who was the greatest comparative anatomist of the day, never accepted Darwin's ideas. Partly from scientific doubts, and partly, I think, from professional jealousy, but that's and on the reader side, there were people who, from the start, welcomed Darwin's insights, as telling us something about how the Creator had chose to structure and bring about the unfolding history of creation. In North America, Asa Gray was a key figure in that respect. Back home, Charles Kingsley, Anglican clergyman, also was a novelist, coined the phrase that perfectly expresses the theological way to think about an evolving world. He said, no doubt God could have snapped the divine fingers and brought into being a ready-made world. But God had chosen to do something cleverer than that, in bringing into being a creation in which creatures can make themselves. The process of evolution is the shuffling exploration of happenstance, bringing to birth the fruitful potentiality in which the laws of nature have been ordained. That's a very positive view of evolution. It's a view, I think, that's very consistent with our Christian belief that God is the God of love, because the creation of the God of love will surely not be simply a divine puppet theatre, which God pulls every string. It will have some appropriate gift of freedom given to creatures to be themselves and to make themselves. And I think that my view would be that an evolving world of that nature is a greater good than a ready-made world would be. It is a greater good, but it has a necessary cost. It is taking place at the edge of chaos. That means that the waters of chaos are always lapping around, and there will therefore be blind alleys and malfunctions as part of that exploration of potentiality. And that gives us some help, I think, thinking about the presence of natural evil in the world, disease and disaster in the world. And science helps us in that respect by pointing out how these things happen. You see, we all tend to think that if we'd been in charge of creation, we would have done it better. We would have kept all the nice things, sunsets, the flowers, and that sort of thing, and we'd have got rid of all the nasty things, the disease and disaster. But science, more science tells us about how the world works, what the presence of the world is like, the more we see that those things are inextricably intertwined with each other. You can't pull them apart, keep this lot, and throw away that lot. There is an inescapable shadow side to the fruitfulness of creation. That's part of the open, unfolding presence of the world. You can see that in a whole number of different illustrations. Let me just give you a couple of them. The engine that has driven the fruitful process of biological evolution here on Earth, taking a world that for 2 billion years or so was simply the world of bacteria, is the world that we see today. The engine that has driven that process is, of course, genetic mutation. And it is the mutation of germ cells that produce new forms of life. But if germ cells are going to be able to mutate, produce new forms of life, and the world is not a magic world, the world is not magic because God is not a capricious magician, if the world is not a magic world, then it is inevitable that somatic cells, body cells, will also be able to mutate. And when that happens, sometimes that will produce malignancy. You can't have one without the other. So the fact that there is, of course, the fact that there is cancer in the world is obviously an anguishing aspect of the world, in which we can rightly feel disturbed and indeed angry at times. But it is not something that a God who is a little bit more competent or a little less callous could easily have removed. It is the necessary cost of a world in which creatures are free to make themselves and new forms of life to develop in that sort of way. In other words, it's not something gratuitous. And just to take another example, of a slightly different kind. Of course, we have tectonic plates on the Earth's surface, and sometimes when those plates slip, they produce severe earthquakes. Or they slip under the sea, they produce tsunamis. So you might say, well, wouldn't it have been a good idea if God had arranged creation in such a way that the Earth had a completely solid crust, there were no plates to slip? But the answer is no, it wouldn't. Because though the slipping of tectonic plates produces earthquakes in that way, it also allows mineral materials to well up from the interior of the Earth and replenish the surface of the Earth. So again, you see, you have this interweaving of things that are fruitful and things that are destructive. And as I say, I don't think for a minute that removes all the difficulties or complexities that we feel about the occurrence of disease and disaster and natural evil in the world. But I think it is a small but genuine offering that science has to make to theology, and it is of course very congenial to an open theology that sees the world as an unfolding process in which these processes have to be enabled by the flexible edge of chaos structure of the world in which we live.